Alright, hello, this is Jack,
And this is Mark.
and welcome to Strange Origins, episode 4, I
Yes,
think,
episode 4.
for lack of a
Here we
better
go.
title still. But,
For those of you who definitely wouldn't know, Jack has come out of a 5K run today.
you will when you hear my voice. Like, I'm very tired. But, as you can see from the picture of this menacing wolf staring at you, this is what's going to be one part of the topics today, is BEASTARS. I
BEASTARS.
have recently
Great
watched
show.
it, finished it, Mark finished it quite a while ago, and I thought it would be a good topic to talk about. Obviously with no
Yep.
spoilers, so if you're listening to this, don't worry, we're not going to spoil anything. But
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
the overall concept of it, pretty much, is if anyone's seen Zootopia, it's like that but on crack. Like
Yeah.
it pretty much goes down to every single societal issues that we face today.
Yeah.
Um,
It's definitely Zootopia with extra levels and extra dynamics in terms of the characters and the way they're portrayed and the human, mind and how it works in
yeah,
a high school setting, I guess.
with that little Japanese twist that they like to throw on, like every once in a while, little things here and there.
Definitely.
But
They don't shy away from controversy.
definitely not.
Like,
For a brief and vast overview, it's basically the world in this one is like Zootopia. It's like made up of animals, carnivores, and herbivores, and it explains and sort of goes into that dynamic of the carnivores being on top and the herbivores being below, but they're still living in a society where they don't eat meat. They're trying to live together on the equality, but as we all know from like our own world, there you can't always have that. So
yeah.
I think it's quite an interesting program that most people should watch. Uh, what's your thoughts on Legoshi, the wolf, basically?
Legoshi, I'm just gonna like briefly talk about something before I get back
Yeah,
to
go on.
Legoshi, but it's just when you think about like that dynamic, like already in our society we have that issue, like that three-tiered issue of lower, middle, and upper class, and you just said that the prey and the predators are above and the prey are beneath, like throwing that into a society that already has like a lot of complexity in that upper, middle, and lower class like structure. Like just
Hmm.
thinking about that just like goes to show how much like extra weight and depth they have in this show. I don't know if they portrayed it that too much in this series, but either way, that's another tangent.
Yeah,
I'm
no.
just like thinking of random things
Well,
now.
like that
Legoshi,
actually makes sense because just to go back onto that actually is with
yeah,
they don't really go into the undercity too much into this in this program. They don't really go
yeah, it's
too
hinted,
far.
isn't it?
Yeah,
They
it's
talk
hinted.
about a sort of
Yeah,
yeah,
it's very it's like it's there in the background and you see it every once in a while. But I mean, for all we know, this school that they follow, this high school, is quite rich. It's quite a nice
it's
school.
prodigious, isn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah,
and it's so
definitely.
I don't know, like maybe next season like they'll go into that aspect of it, but it seems like they've got something quite good here when it comes to that sort of story. I think.
Yeah, it sounds like it's it's ripe for story making and storytelling, like that universe in and of itself.
Yeah.
Speaking about Legoshi, Legoshi is my favorite dog wolf type character I've ever seen in a series. Absolutely love his personality. Like the way you can identify with, I guess, his conflicts and his turmoils and the life
Yeah,
he's going through. I
like
guess. Like, what would you say?
yeah, his personality. I think I was saying to you, like it speaks on to most of us. Like I think of because he's 17 years old in the actual anime, and it just he struggles. Like it's quite a big juxtaposition with like he's a carnivore. He's meant to be somebody who is at the apex. He's meant to be somebody who's on top and in power. But when it comes to talking to people and talking to girls, in fact, he just loses it all and he can't even ask people's names. He can't even talk to them, look them in the eyes sometimes. So it's like I think that was all of us when we were like 17, 18, and then as watching it as someone who's 26, I'm like just screaming at the screen, saying like just ask her name, like God damn it, like
Definitely, definitely. It seems so easy from our viewpoint, right? But
yeah,
when you put yourself in a high school boy's, position, it very much changes because you remember what it was like to be like that yourself.
absolutely, yeah,
It's interesting to think about why he dumbs himself down because, as you said, he's a predator, an apex, supposed to be above all of these like prey. But he's trying to be accessible in the way he talks to people, trying not to come across as something intimidating, someone you can approach.
yeah,
And so he definitely tones down that whole carnivorous nature, tries to go against his nature and be something else to make people more willing to accept him.
absolutely,
He's also
yeah,
very, and that's only one side of it, and this goes to show how complex the show is. on the other side, he's also very socially awkward just naturally anyway, and that's
Yeah,
not even him just trying to hold things back. As you said, he's too shy to ask for characters' names. You know, he's very yeah, he's very nervous
it's very
looking.
reserved.
Really,
Which I
yeah.
mean, a lot of the like some of the characters actually call him a herbivore. Like they actually
Mm,
try and actually you know degrade him, I guess, by calling him that. But it doesn't seem to bother him. Like he doesn't care about being called that. He doesn't care about being seen as weak. In fact,
yeah,
he seems to be the character that sort of actively wants that. He doesn't want people to fear him, and he doesn't want that whole aspect of life. And I think like I do that sort of stuff does resonate with me as well, because I have had that in my sort of world when we were younger. I had
mm,
that sort of thing of like being very self-conscious about what I'm doing. If it makes it seem like I'm aggressive or anything like that, it's something that I've had to work with as well. So I do resonate a lot with this character. I think we all do,
yeah.
with like
That's
different
definitely something
parts.
that it doesn't really go away even when you're older. Like everyone's always manipulating how people perceive you,
Yeah,
right? Like every time you go into a conversation, I mean, that was the big deal with Legoshi is he doesn't want people to see him as a carnivore. He
yeah,
wants people to see his individual, his actual character, his personality. And even to this day, you go into an interview, you manipulate the person who's interviewing you, like the way they see you, or you go on a date, you manipulate how your date sees you and that sort of stuff.
yeah,
Always trying to get to the center of yourself, like your personality, your character. And obviously, sometimes it's too hard, especially with Legoshi, because he's always trying to. At the same time, he's afraid of his internal characteristics. I feel maybe just a bit like afraid of letting people see that as well.
mm,
That's sort of like the root of where a bit of that like social anxiety comes from. I'm thinking about us two when we were younger, like in high school. There's certain things we definitely didn't want to talk about, like music taste and that sort of stuff, like certain characteristics that were aspects of our personality that
yeah.
we
And
definitely
it
didn't
sort
want
of
people to
like
see.
goes against our very nature sometimes. Like, and I think that's what this show basically shows all the time is that you've got instinct, and you've got certain things that you believe in, but you kind of sometimes forego them because you want to be seen as somebody who's a bit more approachable, who's a bit more friendlier, who's a bit more maybe popular back in school. Like, and I think as you get older, that's something that you let go of a bit more, and you've already found who you are. So I mean, you probably never will ever, but like it's something that I feel like you work on through your entire life. And
Yeah,
if there's something that I saw in this program that frustrated me, it was just like, oh my god, please just make the move, just do this. Whereas
it was definitely hard to
I
watch.
wish I was shouting that at myself when I was younger. So like it's quite funny, it's quite interesting.
To be honest with you, you probably were. You're probably standing next to someone once upon a time, just like, come on, Jack, come on, make
Yeah,
it happen.
stop being
Come on.
stupid. And like
Yeah.
this character, like we probably don't do him that much justice, but like he is very complex on a very very like deep level. He on the surface he just seems like a loner who sticks to himself, but he's dealing with so much internal struggle that
Yeah.
it makes for a very good TV,
Yeah.
very good show.
Absolutely. I definitely agree. Watching that struggle of someone trying to deny something that's so right within themselves is always an interesting dynamic for any show that you're watching, and this series has definitely captured that.
Yeah.
What would you say about the presentation of it? Because it's supposed to be a manga genre, but like, what would
Well,
you say
yeah.
about the
So
way it was
I mean,
displayed?
I mean, I've got the benefit of actually seeing it right now, so I can actually see like the actual video that I've got up. But it's like the perfect blend for me of like 3D and 2D.
Hmm.
It has points where that you can clearly see a 3D model, like something's been 3D rendered. Like right now,
Yeah.
on the screen is him when he takes in the scent, and it goes through his brain and everything like that, and that's like a 3D render. You see that that's like a skull, like an X-ray. But then all of a sudden it
Hmm.
switches back to the traditional anime like style where it's like actually drawn and hand drawn and all that stuff. But then
Yeah.
I also noticed like during the opening scene they have like what's that like that's a Fantastic Mr. Fox style where it's like puppets.
Hmm.
So it's like the fact that they go through so many different art styles is magnificent in my opinion, and
That's definitely it. Yeah.
and it just goes like to show like the amount of colors they use. Like it's not like a bland like anime. You got like animals here that are quite extravagant looking and quite extraordinary. So the color palette as well is very varied. It's very nice. Like I don't know. I did enjoy it.
Yeah.
Like it's quite stunning to look at.
Yeah, that fantastic Mr. Fox style. It's very artistic when you see it. You sit there and you're like, they definitely sat there and thought about how they could extend the 3D imaging form to be something that's more engaging than just like stock images of characters moving around and stuff like that. It's
Yeah.
it's very interesting to see them
It
like take it to that level,
it did take me a while to get
especially with
used to.
colors. Yeah.
I will say that.
Mm.
Like when I first watched it, I think it was more that it took me a while to get used to the actual animals themselves. Like
Hmm.
hearing like male voices or female voices coming out of animals was very difficult actually at the beginning. I was like, well, I don't know if I can take this seriously.
Yeah,
Like,
everyone knows about the furry society, so I was definitely
yeah.
wondering how it was like your first tentative steps into this series.
I'm not
Like I'm
sure if I'm
actually
gonna
just
be a
like,
furry
oh,
straight away, but we'll see.
yeah. I mean, like when I first saw the trailer for BeaStars myself, I was thinking, oh, animals that are humans again. And in free, I'm not like me personally. I've never been too much of a fan of 3D like animations like done
Right.
in that style, just because like, it's not that it's bad or like or something like that. It's just I never thought it was explored properly, or it was kind of jarring for me. Like it always just stood out,
It
and I didn't really
wasn't.
get into the flow of it.
It hadn't been refined yet. Is something I think is a key word for it. Like
Yeah,
we were talking
I
about
think
this
that's fair.
earlier. Like there are other animes that have done it, and it just looks clunky and a bit jagged. But I like this because it's
Yeah.
a blend of actual 2D and 3D. So they didn't do the whole
Mm.
anime in 3D, like, but they did certain areas and it amplifies certain scenes and it amplifies certain
Yeah.
body parts and stuff like that. And I think
And
that's way better.
as you said, they didn't even just stop there as well. Like they could just kept pushing the boundaries. They did color palettes and artistical tricks with like the camera and where the characters are and stuff like that.
Yeah, even
They just thought outside the
for
box.
instance, that something that just popped up now is that there's a part where you see Legoshi's sort of inner desire, and it's like that
Mm.
black sort of scribbled drawing. Do you remember? And it's sort of like
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
vibrating, if anything. And that's another style that's done quite well. So it's
yeah.
like it's the fact that what they've done is they've taken many different art styles to show different things. So
Mm.
even if you're not watching just for the story, like what they've done there is quite clever. I think
Yeah, 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 definitely.
something that you could
But
appreciate.
I'm getting these images in my head, like slight flashbacks. But I remember that very cute little scene where Legoshi, being a predator, almost stepped on a very small
Yeah,
prey, like
very small
mouse-like
rodent.
prey. And they like one thing that's good, like flavor of life to the series. I remember they used to be actual human-sized doors, or like I guess like larger creature-sized doors, and then there'd be tiny
There'd
dinky
be
doors.
smaller doors,
But
yeah.
like yeah,
It's
so
good. They've got like really cool little features in the background that you can see, like
yeah,
like little things that if you pay attention to, like you go, oh right, they're there because they're animals. Sometimes you do forget that they're animals,
yeah, yeah,
and I think as the series goes on, that's a good sign of a good anime is that you're like, oh okay, like I think these people are actually people, and then you realize
yeah.
it's a wolf, it's a rabbit, it's deer, like it's very strange, but
It's
it's
a
brilliant.
Yeah, it's very testament to like how good the show is. Yeah, if you definitely forget that these characters are animals, then it definitely push that boundaries. I love the fact that they're not in your face all the time about it. They're not like, oh, reminding you that they're animals. They put these subtle hints in the background to make this
Yeah,
world live and breathe without you having
like you
to,
see like some birds
be forced to
flying and
see it.
stuff like that, and then they sort of like hint, oh, you need a flying license to do that. So it's like little things like that that they show, that it's not just an animal world, it's actually kind of like a civilized animal world. And
Yeah, yeah,
yeah, it's brilliant when they touch on that. But if anything, it wanted me to learn more about the world. I wanted to
yes,
learn more, way more. And as I said to you before, it's 12 episodes. It's not long enough, in my opinion.
yeah,
It needs to be expanded.
definitely. I mean, you say you wanted more. Like, I was thinking about the show as just like a high school drama, right? Which
hmm
it technically is, but it's just pushed beyond the normal ordinary limits, where you
It's
can see just every facet of
yeah,
young developing emotion, right?
it's a high school
Like,
drama on the surface, and then if you delve
yes,
deeper, it's so much more.
it's a metaphorical labyrinth if you
Yeah.
delve below the surface. We had a phone call earlier on today that lasted about an hour, and about 45 minutes of that was just hardcore metaphor,
On one
symbolism
scene, pretty
speech.
much. It was just like one scene. Us
Yeah.
talking about the metaphors in one scene, we can't go into, but it's
Yeah,
it's
we worked it out together, 20 minutes of just talking about one scene back and forth until we
yeah,
came up with, oh, that's probably what they were going for there,
yeah.
which is incredible to do. It's a lot of fun to do for a series, especially if we enjoyed it that much,
And it's
you know?
on like a final note of like BeastArs. It's like it's something that is, it can go from really stupid like little things where there could be like a scene with someone selling something, and then it can go from
Mm.
straight to the other side where somebody has had plastic surgery and complete change of teeth to make them seem more friendly. So it's like there's so much darkness in it, but there's also so much light. Like it balances it quite well, and it gives you like a nice little palate cleanse, if you like,
Yeah,
is what you said earlier, and it's
yeah.
sort of like it refreshes your taste, so you're not always in a serious conflict every single time.
Mm.
Yeah.
Here's a weird comparison I'm also going to make that you probably identify with as well.
Mm.
But watching BeaStars, and this is probably like this is very subjective to my own experience, but we grew up in a very multicultural school
Yeah.
full of people from loads of different, like vastly different nations, races, builds, heights. Like I'm not saying that there were a bunch of like variety and natural advantages, but different upbringings and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And when you go to a school like that, loads of people would often stay within the same race or species. Not everyone, but every now and then you'd get like a bunch of, say, like Middle Easterns hanging out, a bunch of Asians hanging out,
Yeah.
a bunch of white kids hanging out, like that sort of stuff. We definitely came from a very micro group that was 100% mixed. Like we none of us wanted to stick with our
Well,
own, say,
yeah.
like
Like it started off mixed, and
ethnicities.
it started off small.
Yeah,
Is what I think is the
very
greatest
small.
thing. Like
Yeah.
if you actually looked at every other group, there were so many different groups, all staying within their
Mm,
races, and it made it that we all knew straight away that's not what we wanted. Um,
definitely.
and I think like it turned into something where we had like so many other different people going on, and having like different conversations and different like backgrounds. That's what we craved, I think, and
Yeah.
it made it a lot
I,
more exciting.
I like that because quite often we'd have guests from other people's groups, just coming in to hang out with us every now and then, just to get a different perspective or a different conversation
And it
that
grew.
they
The
usually
group
wouldn't get
grew.
that day.
Like we by the time we left, like the school, there was like 20 or 30 people in our friendship circle that were all from different
Yeah,
countries.
yeah, and quite a few people who would bounce in and out, and that definitely grew. Like that took a long time, especially in the first couple of years where there was
Yeah.
only 3 or 4 of us. So it's interesting to see a rise like that, and this does have a comparison to like Legoshi's world. Is the fact that there are certain species I imagine that would stay. They had that day where everyone would go back, right,
Yeah.
into their own subcultures or something. I'm pretty sure Legoshi didn't go back to his wolf den, did he?
He
I'm not too
did. He
sure. I
went
can't
in,
remember.
and then like halfway through, he realizes that that's not what he wanted, and he stares at the
Yeah.
sun, which is again like quite a symbolic thing. Like in his room, for instance, just for anyone who doesn't know, he goes into a room where it's just looking at the moon, and that's what they're meant to do. It's
Mm.
sort of like a biological thing. But he sort of not breaks out, but he sort of walks away from that room and goes upstairs and stares at the sun. And there's so much like symbolism there to show that he's breaking out of character and he's breaking out of his norm. And I think that
Yeah.
it's brilliant to watch.
I love that, like that defying of his natural instincts to,
Yeah.
to be something else, or to desire
Um,
something else. It's
but
incredible.
yeah, to segue onto something else, we were talking about because I've got nothing to watch now. So we were talking about things that we want to watch and things we want to rewatch. And we both brought up recently that we both wanted to rewatch the whole of the Marvel
Yes,
films
definitely.
because we don't realize it's been like 10 years, like pretty much since all of those. And there's some great scenes in there and great like life lessons, I guess, to learn from there.
When you think about those 10 years, that was 10 years of grueling wait because you watch a
Yeah,
movie and you know there's more coming, and you know that there's an arc to this chain of movies, and everyone knows where it was going. It was going towards Infinity Wars,
yeah,
and the
and
amount of
Endgame, yeah,
just many months rocking back and forth. What's Endgame going to be like? And when the movie came out, there was a lot of people just talking about how disappointing or how impressive it was, how it lived up to expectations, or how it didn't. And I like the fact that now the wait is over. Like, if you want to go back and relive those 10 years all in the space of a week or a month, rewatching all of these episodes or movies one by one, you can get that entire experience. Something you'll never have to go through again.
yeah.
It's going to be something that's hard to articulate to the next generation of people.
I think so. But it's also kind of like what happens from our generation. I guess like if you liked anything like Friends or Frasier or anything like those sitcoms or any movies that came out like Star Wars, for instance, like it was stuff like people were waiting like every year for those movies. They were waiting like maybe some 2 or 3 years for those movies, and we can just watch it all on demand. So
Definitely.
they definitely each generation has had their own sort of style and their own sort of area
There
of
is
that.
so much good content in the past, and especially movies you've seen before. I mean, the whole topic is to rewatch stuff, to just go back and relive these
Yeah.
amazing
I
moments.
don't know
Like Star Wars.
if
And
you feel the same way as me though. That I always feel a little bit guilty every time I rewatch something old because I feel like I could be using this time to watch something new and to learn
Jack, I'm
something
going
new.
to take it further and say I hate myself. I mean, we should both hate ourselves. I think like together like combined we've seen at least a Dark Knight Rise, like Dark Knight 14 times.
Yeah,
Like we've seen it 7 times alone each. Like
yeah.
Lord of the Rings. the trilogy. Oh my word! We've seen them back to back at least 3 times in our adult life, and that's not including when we were young,
Yeah,
like
exactly.
teenagers in high school.
And I think
The
that's
amount of
like
times
a
we've seen
big
those
problem,
movies.
man. Like it comes to a point where like you feel like you're not learning anything. Like it comes with books as well. Actually, for me,
Yeah.
like I don't like to read like old books, even though I want to,
Mm.
because I feel like, oh, I should use this time to learn something new and read something new, you know.
Yeah.
And
But
it sucks.
there was a day where I remember you once explained to me that there is a balance and there is definitely an enjoyment or nostalgia that you get from rewatching these old series.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
I'm thinking as well, there is always something new you take away from rewatching it. Like you start to understand the masterpiece that it was and what makes it so masterful. And maybe you can manipulate that in your own life. I'm pretty sure somewhere in our minds, like rewatching The Dark Knight like 100 times has helped us not only appreciate that movie better, but made us better people because we understand how it's good. I don't know.
maybe,
I'm
maybe,
sure. I'm sure there's something good there.
maybe it has, but
You know?
like I feel like it's something that I want to do every time. Like I want to rewatch the Harry Potter series as well because I
Yeah.
love that
It's
series.
it's I'm pretty sure, say you rewatch the entire series, you'll pick up 5 or 6 more things that you just never noticed before.
Yeah,
Or, while you're watching it, you might even be actively thinking, like, what was the director thinking here in this scene? Like, every now and then I rewatch a movie, say, because I was rewatching Once Upon a Time in Hollywood again
oh
last
yeah.
night because I
Oh
had
my god,
problems.
again? That's the fourth time I
Yes,
think you've
again.
watched that.
This time I wasn't even drunk. I was just, I just put it on. I was like, yeah, here we go. Let's
Okay,
get this radio
I
started.
still haven't even seen it once.
I don't, and by all means, it's not a good movie to constantly rewatch because the scenes,
For like for somebody who was hating on it a little bit when it came out, I am surprised you have seen it as much as you
I still hate the movie. I don't understand,
have.
but I rewatch it every single time,
I
and I
don't
don't know
get
why
it.
I'm rewatching it.
The first thing you said to me when that film came out was, "Oh my
Yeah.
god, like there are so many scenes in it that doesn't need to be in it. It should be an hour long." Like, and then like you have sat down multiple occasions and rewatched it multiple times.
I think it must have been the second time I rewatched it where I started to understand that it was more like a radio, something that you can have on in the background, just like scenes,
You know
sounds,
they
clips
actually
from that
have those
time.
things and they're called radios. Mark, you could just have them on in the background.
I probably should, but it's like a visual radio, and yeah, I don't honestly. I just sit there and like I try and piece together this
Well,
jointed narrative,
does
I
that does
guess.
that does that actually work into what we're saying? Have you learned anything new from rewatching that? Have you learned anything new on the fourth time you rewatched Once Upon a Time in Hollywood or not?
On the fourth time. I don't. You know what? Actually, I'm just thinking. I'm cementing this in nostalgic memory. Like one day, 50 years from now, I've just made the experience better.
You're just gonna tell your
I mean,
kids one day, "Oh, you should watch this film." You won't get it, but you need to watch it.
I think I'm chasing a dragon, Jack. I'm
Maybe
doing
you are.
basically heroin over and over again.
But
But I'll never reach the dragon. But I always chase
is
it.
there any series that you want to watch, like again, like that? Because I've said like Harry Potter and like the Marvel thing, like that you wanted to do as well. Is there any other films that you actually want to go back and watch?
That is a good question.
Because like I
That
was
is a
thinking
really
like
good question.
Matrix is actually another one. I was thinking like I actually do love that film, and I know they're making a new one soon, so
Yeah,
it's something that I would probably want to go back and watch.
absolutely. I'm not gonna lie to you, man. I've been really in the mood for like one of those, those romance movies. I know I've seen one before, and I want to go back and rewatch one because like it's hard to find a good romance movie that I actually enjoy.
Yeah.
Where like the protagonist is very, I want one where he's like very, very reluctant, and the girl is very charming. And I'm trying to think of a film
It,
that I've
it
seen before. I
it
know
sounds like you're
there's some out
inspired
there.
by BEASTARS, is what it sounds like.
Definitely, I might definitely be. I love those sort of movies. There are like there are like certain actors I follow for some reason. Like for example, there's this actor on Netflix that I've seen in a lot of like romancy movies, and
Oh
I
yeah.
just watch those movies because I don't know. I'm like, damn, she's charming, or
Yeah, I think you
just
still hold
works
that
for me.
old school fantasy of having like the sort of like the princess and the frog sort of thing. Like like you sort of have that sort of like romance, I guess, that you've always held dear. I think
Yes.
it's
Oh, okay.
go on.
I don't know the movie's name, but yeah, like it's like this '90s movie where this girl is like, you'll probably know this actually. This girl is very unattractive looking at the beginning, and she's very a non-conformist. But one of these characters gets dared to like date her basically, and he dates her, and she sort of transforms into like a hot pretty girl, and then she finds out that he was like dared to date her, and so she
Oh,
hates him
I
and
have
turns
seen
turns away from
parodies
him.
of that film, but I don't know the film.
Yeah. There was if I can find the movie, I'll let you
Yeah.
know. But I remember when I was a kid and I watched it. It was
If
great.
anyone knows the name of the movie, put it in the comments and we'll find out.
Good stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, but it sounds like that Katy Perry music video. Like it's like a parody of that. So, but
It's an old film, so hopefully,
it's it's about time to wrap up now. So
Okay.
yeah. On a final note, if anyone wants to hear us, God knows why, but talk about BeaStars more, and talk about like a spoiler,
Uncensored,
yeah,
where
like
we
a
don't
spoilerific.
dodge every topic we want to talk about.
Exactly. I'll put a warning up, and if anyone wants to see it, like I'll do that whole YouTube thing. Leave a like and comment, and just tell
Fantastic.
us that you want it, and we might film a bonus episode talking about the symbolism and the metaphors behind like a lot of the show. Which, by the way, we're not like experts, but it's just what you got from it and how it affected us, sort of like when we can see ourselves as that person when we were younger.
Yeah, and I'm gonna throw it out there. We will make this video if we get one like. One like, YouTube.
Literally one like.
We will make this video.
It's not like we're going, oh, we have to make this video. It's like, please, we want to make this video. Like,
Yes. One like. We challenge you to challenge us to make this video that we want to make.
alright, thanks guys for joining us.
Thank you.